Ah, good morning, I think. It's Wednesday again, and my colors are all messed up because of the Wonky Wednesday sunlight on an overcast day. It's monsoon season in beautiful downtown Crestline in the San Bernardino Mountains of Southern California's Inland Empire. Oh, wow. And it's chilly. It's cold. Well, not cold, cold, chilly. This world has gone wonky. I was raised to be patriotic. At my brother's Little League games, we sang the national anthem. Everybody stood up in the stands and sang the Star Spangled Banner. In school, we pledged allegiance to the flag every morning, and sometimes I remember as a elementary school child, we'd sing a patriotic song. We respected our government and our police, and well, I did hear my parents talking about how awful J. Edgar Hoover was, but overall, we still respected the FBI. I'm not so sure anymore. If you hear something, it's because Tora wants to go out. She isn't just a cat, she's part bobcat. She wants to go kill something. She rarely does kill anything. And usually it's a high. But she can't go out till I'm through here. I've been, I don't have TV, but the internet, you can get lots of news on the internet, lots of entertainment. And there's all these YouTube clips of whistleblowers. There's something really dirty going on. These whistleblowers, FBI agents, claim that they observed violations of policy and possibly violations of the law. My hair is doing weird things. My cowlick is sticking up. I can't figure out where it is looking at the camera. Well, anyway, possibly violations of the law, and they were punished for bringing it up. And nothing was done about it. When an agency turns on its own, you know there's a problem. They want you to think that, let me check my sound. Yeah, let's turn it up a little. Woo. They want you to think that the whistleblowers are malcontents or discontents, and there's nothing wrong. Raid on Mar-a-Lago and the laptop and Russian collusion. Some operations these agents thought should not have been done, and some that were not done that they thought should be done. I don't know. But that's what I'm getting from various clips on YouTube from news channels. Even CNN is concerned about what's going on in our most respected law enforcement agency, the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Tora, knock it off. You're not going out yet. You could come say hi to your adoring fans. You want to do that? Come here. Come here. Come on. Come here. Give me the cat. Oh, you're heavy. There she is. Here you go. See? See? Yeah. It's a kitty. Oh, oh, you're heavy. Okay, you can hop down if you want. Yeah, I know you get treats when you appear on camera. You're not an unpaid intern. Well, anyway, it's wonky. And because of all the snow and rain we had, the weeds are as high as my knees. When you whack them, they just grow back, so I'm working on pulling them up by the roots. They're, various grasses mostly. A lot of these, I guess they're thistles, stems, and stickers up and down the stems and on the underside of the leaves. Millions of them, millions. In some of the spots where I pulled them up last year, they did not grow back, but I did have to give up and use the weed whacker repeatedly last year, and so there are spots where they grow back. In one spot, and I'm sure there will be another one, I had to quit pulling weeds because these little ants swarmed all over me and started biting. It was their home. So I moved on to a different part of the yard. Oh, wow. So anyway, it's just a wonky Wednesday. What else is going on? Oh, immigration. I really sympathize with people who want to come here, and on an individual basis, I wish I could help, but we're being overwhelmed because the entry is not orderly. there's literally millions just swarming in, and we have to help them, but we have limited resources. We have homeless and people who are living in real poverty. Even with all the um, government subsidies like food stamps and Medicaid, there are people who depend on food banks to feed their children and on various charities to get things like diapers, infant formula, even pet food. And I don't fault people who have a cat or a dog as long as they don't have 50 cats and dogs. Pets are important, aren't they, Tora? Kitty, kitty. Yeah, you're a big bad cat. I have a cat who comes when she's called. How about that? Not every cat does. Sometimes Sweetie will come if I say, good girl. That means treats, but only if she feels like it. Here in California, the migrants are coming primarily through the port of entry, which is a little better than just swimming across the Rio Grande and showing up in huge groups in Texas and Arizona. I wonder about New Mexico. I never hear about New Mexico. Anyway, we have hundreds coming to Riverside County where their shelters are already full. So um, there's a problem. I mean, we don't arrest them, we don't mistreat them. Hi, Howard. Talking about immigrants swarming our borders. Well, these people need beds and food and probably clothing. They've been walking through the desert for miles and miles. Uh, and our resources are limited, especially since the snowmageddon here in California. For 3 solid weeks, we were buried in snow, literally buried. Many people could not get out of their houses, and even if they could, the roads were buried. And it isn't like the mountains are not like a city in the valley where you can just walk because it's flat. And it wasn't hard packed. I mean, you couldn't walk on the snow, you'd be up to your waist in snow. Some people actually had snowshoes, which helped. Anyway, people lost work, businesses lost income, and our businesses are primarily mom and pop shops. They don't have big corporations behind them. So we've really hit the services hard. Food banks and other charities. And now we have hundreds more coming across the border who need the same services. Oh, hi, Witta. Okay. Well, I think you guys missed my brief rant about the news. We've got FBI whistleblowers talking about raids on Trump, the laptop, and all kinds of problems. Oh, and parents at school board meetings, and even the Catholic Church. What has happened to our FBI? What in the world is going on? And by the way, my face is not that pink, it's the light. We have an overcast sky with bright sunshine coming in through my windows. It's weird. I kind of like, though, it hides my scar here from the basal cell carcinoma. Howard lives in a one blinker town. Yeah, small population. Well, they say that Crestline has over 10,000 residents, but that includes Valley of Enchantment, Cedar Pines Park, Twin Peaks, and a few other small communities. Oh, Dart Canyon, and I think it includes Sky Forest. We're spread out in various niches, nooks and crannies of the mountain. Woodland. Howard's aunt was from Woodland. I don't know where Woodland is. I should travel. I haven't got the means to travel. And lately I've become awfully paranoid about this scam where people will just move into your house while you're gone. And when you get back, you can't kick them out because they claim to live there. And they've got not only your house, but all your personal possessions. So I don't ever want to be gone for very long. Oh, it's not a California thing, Witta. It has happened all over. I listened to Steve Leto's channel. There, I typed his name in the chat. It's Lehto, Leto. He's a lawyer in Michigan, and he's been talking about it. And some of the news stations have also done stories on it. It happened in Florida. I remember the Florida case. The owner of the house was gone on a business trip. He came home and someone had broken in through a window, changed all the locks, and set about living there. And they even were obviously doing drugs and trashing the place. And they wouldn't let him into his own home. And the law enforcement, the police couldn't do anything about it. Oh, yeah, home title lock, Howard. That's another scam. They go online and get a copy of the title to your home, and they forge your signature and claim that you sold it to them. And what they usually do is get all kinds of loans on the house and stick you with the bill. And it's weird. I mean, you've still got a mortgage in most cases. You have, I mean, obviously, if you're paying the mortgage, you're the owner. Um, I don't know how they manage to get loans on a house that's already mortgaged. Another thing they'll do is sell it. They'll sell your house out from under you. And this outfit called Home Title Lock will regularly check and make sure your house is still titled to you. Hmm. These squatters just, they don't bother. They just move in and say, I live here, I have a lease. And they'll often have some forged papers that say they're leasing it. That's easy to do. You get the papers at any stationery store and just fill them out. Or you go online and print it out. Yes, Witta says, I wonder how fast that would change if it happened to some members of Congress. Well, you saw what happened when 50 migrants showed up at Martha's Vineyard. I'll bet they were angry when they found out they were taken to a military base to sleep in the barracks. They are military barracks are not known for a lot of comfort, and the food isn't bad, but it isn't what they were used to or what they were expecting. The wealthiest neighborhood. Oh, we don't have enough housing. Tell me about it. Tell me about the New York hotels that were trashed. Nice hotels filled with trash, walls broken, from fists and feet. Um, I don't want to think about it. And when they tried to move them to a new location, they held a protest. If someone gave me free housing and free food, I mean, they complained they didn't like the food. It wasn't uh, what they were used to. Um, I don't know. I might complain if it was rotten or full of insects, but I don't complain about free food or free housing. Ah, jeez. Hi, Tora. No, you quit bugging me. All right, come and say hello to your adoring fans. They weren't here the first time you showed up. I tip forward on Great Granny's rocking chair and get you in real close. Cat hair in my mouth. What? What? Are you unhappy? You're a silly girl. Oh, you're heavy. Oh, yeah, yeah. Squint. Kitty kisses. Yes. Ah, okay. Hop down. You weigh a freaking ton. Come on. You want your treats? Oh, you're doing pokey paws on my lap. Knock it off. Ah, okay. She's a paid intern, not an unpaid intern. Mm, I'm smoking too much and I don't care. Let's see, where is that? I still have a couple of these Dunhill Reds. Yes, she is cute and she is impatient to get the treats. Now I've got cat hair all over my face. Sweetie's doing okay. I've let the cats out a few times during the day. They like that. Sunshine's good for your health. Cat hair. Cat hair. In fact, Sweetie's getting a little less frightened of me. She doesn't run away as fast or as far when I walk around the house. In 15 years, she hasn't figured out that I am not going to harm her. Yes, Tora, you're cute. Now leave me alone. Hmm. Oops. Um, I don't have a lot to talk about. There's that Philip K. Dick letter to Patricia Warwick. About how there's an underground group of Christians who want to save the world. Well, new to me. He talked about it all the time. It was not a big secret, but Phil, of course, wanted to make it dramatic. Oh, got morning hair. My cowlick just won't sit down. Okay, I have a bunch of cowlicks, but one in particular just wants to sit up. It doesn't want to join the rest of my hair. Cat hair. Tora, get out of my stuff. You don't eat that anyway. Go on, leave it alone. She thinks if it's in a plastic pouch, it must be treats because her treats are in a plastic pouch. All right. I should have opened a can before I started this. But I'm trying to switch them to eating in the evening. It encourages them to come in when it's getting dark. Oh, cats. I pulled another million weeds yesterday. Um, Makes me itch just thinking about them. We have these things called foxtails. They look kind of like wheat, but they are not. And they're actually a worse allergen than ragweed. And I'm not generally allergic to things, but I think I've started having a bad reaction to peanuts. So I'll take them off my list of things to eat. Something went wonky the other day. On Monday, I was dizzy and faint, so I got out my little gadget and checked my blood pressure, and it was going down, down, down. But the lowest reading I got was 90 over 60, which is still okay, but I was dizzy. And I slept most of the day. Which of course wrecked my schedule, which never has been a very good schedule. I have trouble sticking to it, but I want to be up and about during the day. Um, and there I was sleeping all day. So, no more peanut butter cups. And I do love them. Oh no, I didn't take a fall with it because I'm not stupid. I I had a cup of coffee and a glass of water and some crackers. So I figured I didn't need to try to cook anything. That might have been a disaster. I just basically stuck to my chair as much as possible. Yes, Tora. Yes, dear. You want more. More gruel. Where's Sweetie? She took off when I stood up to do something. I guess it was to get my coffee. And she hasn't been back even though the treats are flowing freely. I guess she's afraid I might put her on camera and steal her soul. Some primitive tribes used to tell the anthropologists, you can't take my picture, you'll steal my soul. I think they've got a point. Oh, someone asked on Facebook, why did the Hebrew Bible steal all these Buddhist stories from Asia? Well, my response was, why did Boccaccio write the same stories as Chaucer? That's what they did back then. And in many cases, the Hebrew Bible retells stories that the pagans in their geographical area were telling, but with a twist. The pagans say that their god, Baal, brought the rain to water their crops, and the Hebrews would write the same story and say, no, it was Yahweh, it was our God. It's our God who rules the clouds, not your false God. That doesn't mean they stole the story. And even up into the 1600s, when Boccaccio was writing the stories that Chaucer wrote in the 12th century, that's what they did. It wasn't, the goal was not to tell a new story. The goal was to tell an old story and tell it better. Now, of course, no one would dare to copy Newton's Principia and put their name on it. Isaac Newton, um, he was a genius. In the 1600s, he wrote a physics text that is still valid today. We talk about Newtonian physics. We still use it in our daily lives. What goes up must come down, and things that are falling accelerate at 30 feet per second Each second it increases its speed by 30 feet per second. That's why it hurts to fall. And he figured out how gravity works, didn't figure out what it is, and we still haven't figured out what it is. But nobody would copy his work and get away with it. We have a tradition of storytelling in which people do tell the same stories, but in different ways and in different languages. And by the way, the oral traditions which led to the writing were quite common. You find stories of a worldwide flood in different cultures all over the world. Everywhere. The stories are told differently, but you have the rain coming down, the world flooding, and a guy with a boat saving his family. Now, either they're all copying the same story or they all had experienced floods and handed down that story through generations. It's just what people do. They like a story, so they tell it. And so many people were unable to read up until actually quite recently that the oral traditions survived. The I want to say troubadours, but I'm not sure that's the right word. Wandering minstrels. They usually had something similar to a guitar, and they would sing their stories. Hi, RW. RW says, let me type. Oral storytelling was the original copy pasta. Oh, I got cat hair on my keyboard. There. Here. And many of songs today actually tell quite similar stories. There are only so many stories. Yeah. Various books will tell you there are only so many plots. There's the love story, the detective story, the um, I can't think. Oh, the um, what we used to call cowboys in rocket ships. The stories like Star Wars, yeah, they're in spaceships, but they're really cowboys out on the range with a lot of technology. Oh well. You know, Phil had trouble plotting. Philip K. Dick. For those who are listening and don't know, I was married to the author of Blade Runner. Um, he would use the I Ching, especially with his masterpiece, The Man in the High Castle. He would be stuck and ask the I Ching what to do next. But even in that book, at a certain point, he told me the I Ching told him, I'm not going to tell you. The I Ching is an ancient Chinese book. It isn't prophecy, it's just basically advice. And my novel, The Darkening of the Light, takes its title from hexagram 36, The Darkening of the Light. But it did not help me plot the book. I wrote that book in a sort of fever. I was feverish and just writing like a demon, just couldn't stop day and night. I wouldn't say that I channeled it, but something got hold of me and just said, you have to write this. RW says, I always had the feeling Phil wrote from the hip. No idea what was going to happen next. I've always felt that's the proper way to write. Trust the muse, all that. Yeah. Now, when I read Phil's books, on the level of the sentence, I really want to edit him. But man, the stories he told, like Ubik. Many people pronounce it Ubik, Ubik, but Phil called it Ubik. It was short for ubiquitous. Ubik is everywhere. Um, he wondered what would happen if you could talk to the dead. And these people would, when they died, would be frozen and have special telephones that allowed them to communicate until they completely ran out of energy. So it starts with a big explosion, but the rest of the book is just little incidents. It's episodic. And the people who think they survived the explosion find their world degenerating, running out of energy, going toward entropy. And they begin to think that they're the ones who died and the others are alive. RW, like so many people, says that Valis, and by the way, it is not Valus, it's Valus, vast active living intelligence system. So it's a short A as in active. Valus helped many people through rough times. And yet, Valus is actually the third iteration of the same novel. The first one was is now known as Radio Free Albemuth. He called it Valus System A, and the idea was that I'll call them people, for lack of a better term, from a different star system were trying to help us overcome the demonic possession of the entire earth. That we were being brainwashed, and even the appearance of the world in which we live is false. It's really a black iron prison, like the prisons where they kept criminals in ancient Rome. And of course, their favorite criminals were Christians. And by the way, there's this misconception among non religious people and even some Jews that they think the New Testament is all about how the Christians persecuted the Jews. Well, in the beginning, the Christians were Jews. They believed Jesus was Messiah, and the Romans persecuted all of them. Look at 70 AD, the revolt. The Romans crushed the Jews and destroyed the temple. And again, I think the second one, the Bar Kokhba, was around 150 AD. The Romans crushed them again. And the Christians were a cult or sect of Judaism. St. Paul was a Pharisee. James, the brother of Jesus, was a Jew. And the only Gentile to have a book in the New Testament was Luke. He was a doctor, a physician, who interviewed Mary, Jesus' mother, and others to learn the story. Wow. You see, for the most part, Jews do not proselytize. They don't look to convert people. Christians do. But we have a long tradition from Judaism. That's why 2/3 of our Bible, maybe more, is the Old Testament, which is basically the Jewish Bible. We believe the promise to Abraham in Genesis chapter 12. Abraham believed God, and God took his faith for righteousness. So Abraham was justified despite being a sinful man because he had faith in God. And then the promise was made from God to Abraham, through you shall all the nations be blessed. Remember, after the Tower of Babel, God scattered the nations. Well, he scattered the people and they formed nations. But God called Abraham to be the ancestor of God's people, God's chosen. Now, Abraham had 2 sons, and I'm not going there. I'm not qualified to go there. But the tradition I know about is that Abraham's son Isaac gave birth to 2 sons, Jacob and Esau, and Jacob is the ancestor of the Israelites. God changed Jacob's name to Israel, and Jacob's 12 sons formed the 12 tribes of Israel. They're Hebrews, which means descended from Abraham. They're Israelites, which means descended from Jacob. And by the time of Jesus in the 1st century AD, they were called Jews because during the Babylonian captivity, which was primarily the tribe of Judah, the Babylonians called them Jews, and that was an insult, but they decided to make it their word for their ethnicity. And by the way, Judaism today is not about ethnicity. We have the Ethiopian Jews who are black. We have Jews who are Eastern European and even Asian. And then we have those who went to Northern Europe and are more Caucasian, and even the Eastern Europeans tend to be somewhat dark skinned. And by the way, in historic slavery, the most enslaved people were the Eastern Europeans. The word slave comes from Slav, their ethnicity. They were Slavic, Slavs. This gets complicated when you want to talk about reparations. Some of my ancestors died in the Civil War in the US, which, believe it or not, the original goal of the Union was not to end slavery. That movement had been going on since the birth of this nation, primarily in the Christian churches. We've got to end slavery. And the war arose in part from that movement, but also as a matter of taxes. And it's to our credit that we did end slavery, although the process we used was chaotic and in many ways harmful. We did end it. And there are parts of the world, even now, where slavery has not ended. They just don't call it slavery. Like the many Pacific Islanders who work in Arabic countries. They might as well be slaves, they just aren't called slaves. How did I get into that topic? Oh, hi, Talitha. Talitha has a good question. Taxes on what? Well, primarily transportation taxes. The South produced crops like cotton and sugarcane, and they had to go by railroad to the industrial North. They produced all kinds of food too, but we hear the most about cotton. Um, they had to transport their raw materials to the north, where the factories would turn them into products for sale. And the federal government put on taxes on the railroad, which increased the cost of shipping from the south to the north to a point where these plantations were losing money. And there really were not that many huge plantations. Most of the people were small farmers who might or might not have slaves. And you won't hear much about this, but many free black people owned slaves. They had problems with the state laws when they wanted to free a slave. It was often forbidden by law. And there were some processes by which a slave could buy his freedom, and it was usually a man. They were still rather sexist. Um, because slaves were allowed to work for wages on their days off. And they would save up their money and buy their freedom and their family's freedom. That's how it usually happened. Talitha says her great great grandmother was Cherokee in quotes and owned 2 slaves. Well, I'm the direct descendant of a black African slave in Virginia around 1800. And her son's father was the white slave owner, so he freed his son. But of course, his son didn't get much. He didn't inherit. Only the white children inherited. Well, Talitha says she might have really been mixed, but she was certainly part native. And Talitha thinks Shawnee. In Virginia, yeah. Well, that's why Thomas Jefferson could free his slaves. He lived in Virginia. The law was wonky. But he managed to free some of them, but not all of them. The best way to get around the crazy laws was to put it in your will that when you died, they were free. And there was a problem with how could freed slaves make a living if they were kicked off the land where they were enslaved? I mean, they built their homes, they built their families. And if they were freed, they had to leave. Where would they go? Well, many, whether escaped or actually freed, went to the north to work in the factories, where they still suffered all kinds of discrimination and mistreatment. Oh, Talitha says, my mom said our records in this state got all mixed up because of the 1924 Racial Integrity Act. That's how so many don't know exactly who they are. Yeah. Well, I was told that I don't know, something great grandmother was Cherokee. She married the half black son of the slave. Her name was Louise Clark, and the last name Busby was the name of the slave owner, Andrew Busby. Uh, so when she got married, she became a Busby. Now, the Mormon website says that well, they call her Louisa Clark. I don't remember a maiden name, but Louisa Clark Busby, they say she was white. But her husband, William Van Buren Busby, was black. And yet the DNA from Ancestry and another site, I forget which one, I think might be My Heritage, they don't detect any black or Cherokee in my DNA, and yet there are reservation Cherokee who look just like me. So who knows? But that's my ancestry, even if they didn't give me any DNA. And we learned as adults, because mom told us we were Cherokee. Um, that was a euphemism for black. As adults, we learned that our great grandfather was buried on the black side of the cemetery. Um, Harry Clark Busby. And then my brother, who was really into the family tree, got in touch with some cousins in Texas. And oh, yeah, they said our grandpa was black and we're black. He lived there till the end of his life, but he was buried in Los Angeles, where he had married our white great grandmother. My grandpa was past white, and his father couldn't pass. He was buried on the black side of the cemetery. I have Ancestry and one other DNA thing, and there's a site where you send them your profile from Ancestry, and they supposedly go into more detail. One of them keeps giving me these genetic traits, a free genetic trait. Check it out. And it tells you you're more likely to have this or that characteristic or condition, and you tell them whether it's accurate. I'm going, oh, so it's free for me to give you my data so you can make money off it. For a while, I did go in and tell them whether it was correct. And then I thought, no, I'm working for them and they aren't paying me. Now, white, maybe Louisa Clark was white, but many Cherokee are white. Those who could avoid the Trail of Tears, and many did, could walk into town wearing a white woman's dress or a white man's clothing, and no one would suspect that they were, oh my God, they're Indians. They look, we're all related anyway. Just like all dogs are related, even though some are large, some are small, they come in different colors and shapes and sizes. They're all dogs. We're all people. And I think it's ridiculous to separate us based on the color of our skin, the texture of our hair, and so forth. I don't know what Kat Von D is, Taliha. Oh, a joke because she is very pale, and Talitha is that pale. Okay. I just don't get it. It's over my head. I guess there's some person named Kat Von D that I never heard of. I don't get out much. Well, heck, I don't know. I've got freckles. The ones on my face have been fading, but my arms are still freckled all over. They say that comes from Cherokee, and yet I don't seem to have any DNA. I should have some Dutch DNA. My grandmother was a Van Brunt, so she would be half Van Brunt. Her father or her mother was a Van Brunt, and her father was not Dutch. But that would mean that my dad was 1/4 Dutch and I'm 1/8 Dutch. And one DNA site caught that and said I was part Dutch, and the other one did not. They said I was Swedish or no. But they both caught that I have a great deal of Scottish ancestry and Welsh as well, and what I call Norman. The Norman French who invaded England, one of my ancestors was among them. So my grandfather was a Foster, which is forester, and his ancestor was working for William the Conqueror. The Norman French were really Vikings, not French. They were from Scandinavia. Oh, Kaveh is here. That's Jason. Hi, Jason. Maybe it's cafe, like coffee. What? What? Tora? You had enough treats to burst your belly already. She wants more. I'm not going to pick her up again because I'm tired of wiping cat hair off of my face. There you go. Lord. I'm amazed that my internet is holding up. It just while back just quit working on Tuesday mornings, so I thought I'd try Wednesday mornings, and it seems to work. Who knew? So anyway, my ancestry has a good deal of Scottish, a good deal of Welsh, and a good deal of English, which is really Norman French. Howard is back. I didn't know you left. Oh gosh. It's morning. I cough every morning, but it's especially bad today because of all the weeds with their pollen. And I spent a good deal of time yesterday pulling weeds. Oh well, I'll be at it again today, pulling weeds and doing laundry. I couldn't do any laundry for the longest time. The winter weather actually started in October, and then at the end of February, well into March, there was too much snow. It wasn't worth it to leave the house, let alone try to do laundry and hang it on the clothesline. I couldn't go to the laundromat either with all that snow on the roads. When I was younger, I could have put the laundry on a sled and hauled it to the laundromat. It isn't that far away. But when the snow is 6 feet deep, all bets are off. Ah, mm, won't stay lit. So now I'm catching up. Tora, get out of my stuff. You don't eat that. It isn't cat treats. She thinks it's cat treats. It's in a plastic pouch. It's actually an electrolyte powder that you add to a glass of water when you're dehydrated. Much better than the electrolyte beverages that come in a bottle. They usually have salt and maybe a little potassium, and that's about it. Okay, I gotta type. Ah, so what do we do about the FBI and the alleged corruption? Well, either what the whistleblowers are telling is true, or they're those four who have come forward are corrupt. Either way, there's corruption in the FBI. Now, I tend to believe the whistleblowers. I got to get some water. It's empty. Be right back. Dum 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 dum. Everybody should have cats. They keep you on your toes. Okay. Ah, that's better. And it isn't just the FBI. Our border is in crisis. And in the congressional hearings, they say they're working on it. They're working hard. They're trying their best. Well, they aren't succeeding. Yeah, that's my doomsday thought, Howard. Even if you had all the evidence needed, it just isn't going to change. When I was a child, it was all about J. Edgar Hoover. They couldn't get rid of him, and everyone knew he was corrupt. He finally died. And the FBI started out so well. They were the untouchables. During Prohibition, there was so much bribery going on that they needed a new police force that would be untouchable. They would not take bribes. And many of them paid with their lives for not taking bribes. Kind of reminds me of Richard Nixon's brand new agency, the Drug Enforcement Agency, DEA, to fight illegal drugs. I'm still outraged that some people got 20 years in prison for possessing marijuana. Marijuana at that time grew as a weed all over the southwestern United States. The government convinced farmers and ranchers to eradicate it. They told them it was making their cattle go mad. Well, local weed did, but local weed is loco, L-O-C-O, Spanish for crazy. Loco weed is not marijuana. Anyway, marijuana was not what it is today because jail sentences were based on how much you had. Smart people developed varieties that would get you high with a smaller amount. And it's so potent now, I wouldn't go near it. I tried it once in high school, I think maybe twice. Well, someone passed me a joint. I inhaled cat hair. Unlike Bill Clinton, I inhaled. First, it made me cough uncontrollably, and then it made me ravenously hungry, but I couldn't really say that I was high. So then people started lacing the marijuana with other drugs, like PCP, which originally was a duck tranquilizer. Oh, cat hair. It's your fault, Tora. And that could make some people totally loco, incredibly crazy. Tora, if you want more treats, you're going to have to say hello. Come on. Say hi to your adoring fans. Ah, kitty kisses. Yes. Oh, you're heavy. I can't hang on to. Now I got cat hair on my face again. This is not kitty treats. This is kitty treats. Okay? Cat hair. And by the way, I'm going forward and back because, as usual, I'm in Great Granny's rocking chair. My back is getting better, but it still gives me problems. And very soon I will be able to see the chiropractor. Maybe align my spine a little better so I don't get these horrible muscle spasms. Well, I don't know. I don't think things will change, but we still need to raise hell about it. Most real criminals, the top tier of criminals, die of natural causes before anyone ever manages to take them to court. I can't believe George Soros is still alive. And that guy who owns Fox, what's his name? I can't remember. They do say that only the good die young. There was a popular song about that. I think it was the James Bond film. So many of these wealthy and powerful elites are completely soulless. Like one of the British royalty, I think King Charles's uncle, said he hoped that if reincarnation was real, he could come back as a deadly virus and kill most of the people in the world because humans are a scourge on the earth. Well, if you want to reduce the population, you go first. Get out of my coffee and my tea, Tora. Get out. Leave my things alone, you rotten cat. You know better. She's up here again, up on my desk, and proud of herself. Aren't you? Get off my stuff. See Daisy. Cats. I better open a can for her. I'll be right back. Come on, let's get your fancy feast. Don't help me. That isn't helpful. Well, not long ago they were going through the dry cat food like crazy, and now they don't want it. Go figure. Oh yeah, Witta, that's right. Kissinger is still alive. You know, in in that movie, blanking on the title, where we accidentally nuke a city in Russia. They have one character is a German scientist who's in a wheelchair, and he was a parody of Kissinger. What was that movie called? Oh dear. Your memory starts to go when you get old. And I'm not that old. I'll be 69 next month. That's not that old anymore. It has that scene where Dr. Strangelove, thank you, Witta. It has that scene where the bomb gets stuck and won't drop, and the Air Force guy is jumping on it to make it fall, and he rides it on the way down like a cowboy on a bucking bronco. That is really crazy. Yeah, well, Dr. Strangelove was based on Kissinger. It was a criticism of him. And yet he advised many presidents. He might be advising the president we have now. Well, hi, sweetie. Let's see if we can get her on camera. There she is. Hi, sweetie. Such a pretty girl. Are you a good girl? Sweetie needs her treats. Laura, you've had a million treats. Let's run away from the treats, you idiot. Okay, she'll be back. Now there's treats all over the floor. Hello, sweetie. I like to say that because it's from the new iteration of Doctor Who. Tora, knock it off. Still have a couple of Dunhill Reds. I keep pointing things at the screen, but the camera is not on the computer. It's a separate gadget. Wow. I could see a Doctor Strangelove scenario happening now. Cat hair. Ah. Yeah, Sweetie's back eating her treats. Silly girl. She's scared to death I might touch her. I mean, Putin keeps talking about how he will use nuclear weapons if we force him to in Ukraine. It's a scary time. When I was a school child, we had, fire drills, and we still had air raid drills left over from World War II, and we also had atomic air raid drills. As if getting under your desk with your hands over your head like this would save you from an atomic bomb. Well, at least you might not get crushed when the roof collapsed, but the radiation would still get you. We might be entering such a time again. You see, we came close to a nuclear war. It cost Khrushchev his position as the head of the Soviet Union. I think they call them the premier. Russians use a lot of French words. But we did not go into a nuclear war. And most people blamed John Kennedy, President Kennedy, for that fiasco over Cuba. But apparently it was a CIA plot to try to get us into a nuclear war. And that's what historians, for the most part, are saying now. They were angry with Kennedy over the Bay of Pigs, a failed invasion of Cuba by Americans and Cuban refugees and some dissidents within Cuba. Do you know that we still have a military base in Cuba? Someone asked me in an interview when I thought the U.S. would leave Iraq. This was 20 years ago. I said, we don't leave. When did we leave the Philippines? Oh, we gave back the base that the volcano buried in lava, but we still have the other base. And when did we leave Cuba? When did we leave Germany? When did we leave Japan? We don't leave. I don't think we have any bases in Vietnam, but we have territories too. Now, the Philippines voted to become independent. They were a U.S. territory since the Spanish American War. They voted to become independent, and we said, okay, but we still have a military base there. But that really messed up a lot of Filipino people because they used to be U.S. citizens. They could come to the United States and they were not immigrants, they were citizens. Not anymore. Oh, and there was a thing on Steve Leto's channel. I'll type his name in the chat again. He's a lawyer who does a podcast on YouTube. Leto is Lehto. One of the stories he did was where a Hertz car rental agency at the airport refused to rent a car to a Puerto Rican man because he didn't have a passport. Puerto Ricans are American citizens. They don't need a passport to come here. They don't need a passport to rent a car. All right, let's see if I can remember the title. The 1960s stage show that became a movie. It's really the story of Romeo and Juliet, but it's Puerto Ricans, and I think the other ones were Puerto Ricans versus in New York City versus I think Polish. Yeah, they had their gangs. And a Polish young man falls in love with a Puerto Rican woman, which causes all kinds of problems. What was the title of that? Come on. West Side Story. Thank you, Witta. We must be on the same wavelength. Oh, where was I going with that? Oh, yeah, the Puerto Ricans were American citizens. The Polish were immigrants. And they considered each other enemies. Because they were basically fighting over the same resources. Last week, I talked about studies in which rats were kept in crowded conditions and started killing each other. That's what big cities do to you. It shouldn't matter. One's an immigrant and someone else is a citizen. But it does matter when there's chaos on our borders and millions of people come in without any resources. We have to provide them with food, clothing, housing, a job, or welfare. Our resources are not unlimited. We have homeless people already, many of them veterans, and many, at least in California, who used to be able to go to a state hospital. It was not like one flew over the cuckoo's nest. Although, if you delve into that story, the Jack Nicholson character was really a bad guy. Nurse Ratched was the good guy after all. Anyway, they had cottages where people could actually voluntarily commit themselves and could leave anytime they wanted, but they needed psychiatric care and they needed basics. They would have free housing, free food, medical care for whatever they needed, not just psychiatric, but you know, whether they had a disease or a handicap or whatever, or a broken leg. They were taken care of. They were not prisoners. And they even had housekeepers clean their little cottages for them. Well, between Governor Ronald Reagan and Governor Moonbeam Brown, Jerry Brown, who toured Africa with Linda Ronstadt because of all the rumors going around that they were gay, and that was just not acceptable in 1970. Well, anyway, thanks to the two of them, our state hospitals now, basically, if you aren't bedridden and dying, you don't get in. They've been basically shut down. They're just hospice care. So all these people who did not want to leave the state hospitals were forced to leave, and they ended up on the streets, panhandling, going through the dumpster at McDonald's to find something to eat. You know, it, it, it really wrecked California in many ways. And we still have people like that. Some don't want help. Many do, but can't get it. Most of the medical care is now provided on the internet. How many homeless people have internet? They might be able to use it at the public library. Last time I checked, it was $10 to get a library card. But using their internet is free. But do you really want to sit in a public place while talking to your psychiatrist on the internet? We've really gone downhill in California. I was born and raised in Southern California. I don't think I'll ever leave, but our Golden State is tarnished. Witness says they can't get food stamps or even a bus ticket without internet access now. Well, they can get it on a cell phone, but I don't think the free cell phones they hand out are capable of getting the internet. Now we have dreaded 88. Somebody is switching accounts. Okay. I really recommend living in a small community if you can. In Florida, they have to get online. Let's see, I gotta type. Yeah, I have some bus passes from the local clinic. It isn't a free clinic, but they accept Medicaid. But now that I'm on Social Security, I have Medicare. I didn't pay much attention. I was going through terrible brain fog and not getting much help. But with Medicare, I can go to a real doctor, and I do. But there are certain limitations. Some things are not covered. Like I can go to the chiropractor for back pain, but there are certain treatments that are not covered, which is ridiculous. For example, a friend told me she wanted to go on the table where you lie down and these rollers go back and forth to soothe the muscles in your back. It isn't covered. However, it only costs $10, so she paid for it. Mm. Cat hair and coffee don't mix. Uh, wow. I've been on for an hour and 45 minutes, and I had nothing to talk about because it's Wonky Wednesday. Hi, L. Freeman. Oh, Lord. Yeah, you've missed everything. And I did talk a little about Philip K. Dick. We're living in his world. Like Flow My Tears, the policeman said, you can't get anything without the internet. You don't even exist. It's the Matrix, too. All the hordes of poor people who have no hope. During the pandemic, the wealthy got wealthier and the working class got poor. We crushed mom and pop businesses, and people who had jobs lost everything because the places where they worked were shut down. I could go through Walmart or Costco or Sam's Club with hundreds of my closest friends, but I couldn't go to the local coffee shop and get lunch. They survived by offering takeout. Some places even offered delivery, but they were just barely surviving. Oh, is L. Freeman's note not showing? Well, I have a wrench, but I don't see. Oh, I see. There's a thingy. Um, no, I don't see anything that's hidden. Oh, he used a bad word? Yes, we see you. Um, just don't, um, it says you used a bad word. I'm not seeing it where it's hidden. Oh, oh, I don't know. No, that's not a note. That's L. Freeman's attempt to smile. I'm not I'm not even seeing where he talked about California. Okay. I guess I'm not even seeing it. I could approve it or at least look at it if I could see it. I did scroll up all the way to where you said I'm back. I see a colon followed by the letter D, but that's just a smile. Oh, YouTube for some reason is hiding it from me. So, what about the California something hospital? Yeah. Well, the lunatics are running the asylum. You wish Phil had left us a life raft? I don't think he had one. I don't know. But I still think we need to raise hell. It's funny. YouTube thinks my audio is low, but it isn't. Huh. Oh well. We are just keeping our heads down, lying low. It isn't laying. It isn't laying unless there's some eggs involved. It's lying. Oh well, everyone says laying low. And even on network news, where people are supposed to be educated journalists, They've forgotten the past tense that we learned in third grade. The ship did not sunk, it sank. They're corrupting our language to prevent us from communicating clearly. Oh, sorry, Elle. Maybe there's something wrong on your end. Yeah, you boob hates us all. Uh, well, I'm getting toward the part where I wind it down. It's going on 2 hours. I'm just amazed that Verizon internet is holding up. I guess maybe since I raised hell with them, they're being a little better to me. But I still can't go live on Tuesday mornings. I think maybe a lot of people get online on Tuesday mornings. Let me see. Where's my gadget? I better check the battery. This here is my modem. Little battery is low. I have to find the right cable. Come on, evil thing. There, here. Oh, the screen froze. Mine didn't freeze. My screen is not frozen. I don't know what to tell you, L. Freeman. Oh, you read the Mirror and the Mural. Thank you. Ah, Lord, it's morning. I'm not a morning person, but I've decided that I will have a better time on the internet in the morning. I will try to do an occasional late night podcast on YouTube, but lately I've been falling asleep by 10 o'clock at night, sometimes earlier. Anyway, it is about time to wind things down. An updated edition? Okay. Yeah, you can send it for L. Freeman. They're very light fantasies, not a lot of action and so forth. They're more a mental, emotional thing. Uh, and I've thought about some improvements I could have made to them, but I really need to focus on the exegesis, which is really, really difficult. Oh, L. Freeman says it was the sun going nova. Small technical details as to the hows and whys. Yeah, I'm unlike many people, I can read Phil's handwriting, but it is tedious, especially since the images available online are cut off on the edges. So there's letters you can't see, and sometimes entire words because they're off in the margin. Autobiography? I wrote a sort of autobiography, My Life on the Edge of Reality. but it doesn't focus on Phil. Well, the exegesis is thousands of pages of notes, handwritten notes, and letters, correspondence with various people. And it was basically sort of Valis. There were actually three Valis novels, and the transmigration of Timothy Archer doesn't belong there. It should be replaced with Radio Free Albemuth. But the exegesis goes on past the Valis novels. I didn't know you wrote a biography for me, L. Freeman. I'm I'm way behind on my reading. It takes so much time and effort to you sent it to me and I laughed. Okay. I get did you email it or message it? If it's in the Facebook Messenger, no, don't post it here, I'll lose it. I'll give you my email. Oops. Why did I do that? You have no idea how much reading I do. Okay, it's on the Facebook page. Well, those things get lost because I get tons and then I forget because I get so many. All right. Yeah, email is best because even when my email folder fills with spam, I can delete it. With Messenger, I'm swamped. I'm absolutely swamped. I don't have to sign off as long as my internet holds up. But I'm running out of things to talk about. Thing is, I've had so many strange experiences from going back long before I met Phil that I can totally accept his Valis novels as reality. Hi, Daryl. Daryl wants to know about the gifted program. Well, it was not in Orange County. Gateway to the Behavioral Engineering of Gollum. Oh, that's a great subject. When I was in Orange County, Mom sent me to a private school for gifted children. They told us we were special and elite and we would rule the world and all this stuff. It was founded and run by a psychiatrist, Glory. First name was Glory. She was a doctor, psychiatrist, medical and psychology doctor. Ludwig, L-U-D as in dog, W-I-G. It's still there. It's called El Dorado. 2 words, El Dorado. which of course means the golden one. Well, Daryl, no, Glory, Glory. Last time I checked, the school was being run by her daughter. But that was 20 years ago, and I'm not sure what's going on now. Are you the Dr. Hamamoto that I watch on YouTube? I think you are. It's very interesting. Oh, sex education. When that started in junior high, your parents had to approve you to go to sex ed. Now, your parents can deny, but if they don't do anything, you get to go. We actually had sex ed in Culver City. I was in 5th grade, so that would be 1965 or 6, but it was very basic. They showed the boys a film about their man parts, and they showed the girls a film about our lady parts. Thank you for the large type, L. Freeman. Oh, he's writing about me. Hamamoto is Professor Hamamoto, I believe. In junior high, Mom did not approve me, so I didn't get to see the film. But I can tell you that boys and girls had different social engagement afterward. And they all saw the same film together. But no, El Dorado didn't have much structure or discipline, but the instruction was amazing and brilliant. And I came to learn because I was frightened to go there. I was an average student, and I didn't think I was gifted. So I knuckled down and studied hard. And I learned that the other students were being lazy. I wiped them all out. But it wasn't because I was brilliant. It was because I worked hard. They gave us an IQ test for entrance, and mine is 160, or it was then when I was 15. Hamamoto taught at UC Davis for 21 years. Oh, yeah, I keep forgetting names. I'm terrible at names. Takes me a year to learn my next door neighbor's name. But there was I think it was Louis Friedman who did this self-esteem study. I'll put that in the chat. LOUI. Kids studies. Oh, and by the way, uh, Philip K. Dick was studied. His mother enrolled him in a study of gifted children, and it was longitudinal, but when he reached age 18 and could opt out, he did. But they still followed his career, even though they didn't get to interview him once a year anymore. Yeah, it was supposedly about self esteem. It was even published in Scientific American. Let's see. Um, Around 1966 or 7. But what I remember is being taught these, what had to be remote viewing, although they didn't call it that. Uh, the R word? L. Freeman used the R word? I don't know what the R word is. YouTube is weird. It must be so bad that I don't even get to choose whether to approve it. Jane Mansfield had an IQ of 163. Dad claimed his was 165. Mom, I was at Trident Junior High in Anaheim. It no longer exists because our population dropped. Uh, let's see. I was 13 years old, so that would be 67. I asked my counselor what she thought my IQ was. This was before I ever had a test. And she said, oh, probably the same as your mother, 130. And I told my mom about that, and she said, well, how does your counselor know what my IQ is? I was expecting mom to say, no, I never had an IQ test, or my IQ isn't 130. No, it was, how does she know? They were following my mother, for sure, before I was born. And they were following me, and I don't know why. Brookers Junior High. Our flag football team used to wipe you guys out on the field. Home to Disneyland, yes. I was in long walking distance of Disneyland. So my best friend Sandy and I would walk to Disneyland, pay $2 or $3 for admission, and then beg people for the tickets to rides. They didn't want the A and B tickets or even the C tickets sometimes, so they'd give them to us. We could buy an E ticket. We could usually afford one E ticket for a good ride, like Pirates of the Caribbean, but only one. L. Freeman says he was misplaced in school. I was bored out of my mind throughout elementary school. In junior high, I had trouble because mom would not let me do my homework. She'd scream at me, put down that book and go outside and play. I think it was because she had a hangover, plus she never liked me. Mom was the devil's sister. The word was something between, oh, yeah, you can't use that word, L. Freeman. I'm sorry. You have to say challenged. Yeah, I don't need a strike. I have a warning from when I described my personal experience with a certain jab, and they took that whole video down. Yeah, but when she got me into this special school for gifted children, all of a sudden she was somewhat supportive, not completely. I would ask her for, well, I'd have like plenty of paper, pens, and pencils, which had always been an issue for me. Never had enough school supplies. So I did have pencils, pens, and paper. Dad got me a briefcase, which was really cool. But I needed some, uh, what I wanted was blank pages for making a scrapbook. And she just wouldn't even let me tell her why I needed them. What do you need them for? And I'd try to explain, and she'd say, no, answer my question. And I'm like, what? I'm, I am. And I ended up in tears and didn't get any blank scrapbook pages. Elle Freeman's ex-mother was a Horridon. I think you're allowed to use that. Well, I got the idea of the devil's sister because that's what. Oh, come on. It's a name, and I keep forgetting it. This TV preacher called his ex wife the devil's sister. I just blank on his name again, and I just had it. I'm terrible at names. Gene Scott. I got it. Gene, Gene Scott. He called his ex wife the devil's sister. So now I call mom the devil's sister. Oh, Ted the Unabomber. I think they gave him LSD without his knowledge. Yeah, even when he was in college, they were still studying him because he was gifted. Gene Scott was a cousin of Jerry Lee Lewis? Well, that's rather fitting. I quit watching him when he started selling awful paintings to get money to buy horses for his girlfriend. Oh, for Elle Freeman, it was art supplies. The only time I had art supplies was when my grandmother gave me some for Christmas. I wanted to do oil painting, and she meant well, but she got me paint by numbers. But the next year that she got together with my favorite aunt. I know it's aunt, but I'm Californian. I say aunt. Um, and they got me blank canvases and brushes and oil paints and all kinds of goodies. Oh, Lilith, L. Freeman says. Yeah. Lilith traditionally would be Adam's first wife who ate the fruit and disobeyed God and ended up turning into a demon screaming through the night. Yeah, Gene Scott, I don't, it was okay on piano, but he really rocked on the saxophone. L. Freeman wants to send me issues of Dragon magazine. Hierarchy of Hell. Well, email me. I gave you my email. I'll put it up again in case anyone else in chat wants to correspond. Sometimes I'm slow to answer. But I do read my emails. I'm not so good on Facebook Messenger because it's full, really full. And I prefer that long messages go on the email where I can make them real big. Berkeley connection to Jonestown. My husband's previous wife almost ended up in Jonestown, but her daughter talked her out of it. They had been at one of the communes in California, and her daughter talked her into leaving. Good girl. At Nukiak, we used to say aunt as well. Well, it depends on which part of New York you're in. Some of them try to sound British. Uh, yeah. Well, there are some minor errors in my life on the edge of reality, but they're not critical. They're things like I forgot we had a neighbor named Bill Ott. So I placed my childhood friend Scotty's house where Bill Ott's house would have been. And then I forgot that the one friend of my brother went to Cardiff Avenue Christian School, and the one who went to Hebrew school was David Hassan. Skipper Lethbridge was at the Christian school. I went to Sunday school with my brother once, but I could not recite the Bible verse properly because the Bible that my grandmother gave me was a Jehovah Witnesses Bible, so it wasn't the same as the King James. Unpopular? Yeah, but yeah, paid would be nice. Oh, I do have PayPal at the email address if you want to contribute, but my necessities are covered right now. I just can't, I have to get help with things like the water damage to my house from the 6 feet of snow followed by tons of rain. And I have a dripping bathroom faucet. Ordinarily, in the old days, you could replace the washer. Just open it up and put in a little rubber washer. Not now. You have to replace the whole thing. And I can't turn the valves, the shutoff valves. The handles are frozen from probably decades of lime buildup from hard water. So I'm trying to get those unfrozen by various means and methods. And then I have to buy a whole new faucet. Drives me crazy. Stuff like that is extra, and I don't have a lot of extra. My earnings on Amazon are holding steady, averaging about $25 a month, but they had dropped precipitously during COVID lockdowns. I would have thought that people would buy more, at least more Kindle books, but no. Sales went down to about $10 a month. Now they're back at 25, which is something. But I wish Hollywood would find one of my books and offer me $1 million. I could pay off my mortgage. I could actually have a car again instead of begging others for rides. Oh well, I get by. And people here are very generous. I do get rides. I can't walk to the bus stop. I have bus passes, but I can't get there. It's pretty far away, and I don't walk well. I'm getting better, but my back has to improve a lot more. At about half a block, I get the muscle spasms that just cripple me. Anyway, the Lutheran Church brought me a bunch of food, and we have two food banks. One, um, a friend delivers, uh, and the other one, you have to go there. And, you know, I have plenty of food. Sometimes people take me there, sometimes they deliver, and I have to actually turn down some of it or give it to people who, for various reasons, aren't able to go to the places where they're giving food away. Usually, psychiatric problems. They're housebound because they're scared to go anywhere. I get that from time to time, but not all the time and not that strong. Anyway, it's been 2 hours and 22 minutes. I gotta get going. And Professor Hamamoto, if you have any more questions, you have my email now. So let's wind things up. I didn't want to think about being studied and all that stuff. Let's see, I got to type my usual sign off. Thank you all for listening and have a great day. Okay. Let's see. Now, let's see if YouTube will behave. Sometimes it won't sign me off.